Let me start by telling you something that most people never hear until it's too late. Success rarely looks like success in the beginning. In the early days, it looks like failure. It looks like silence. It looks like effort with no visible reward. It looks like waking up early, working hard, staying disciplined, and still feeling like nothing is happening. I've spent decades studying success, teaching success, and living the principles of success. And one truth stands above almost everything else. Consistency beats intensity. Not once, not twice, but over and over again. And here's the problem most people face today. They start strong. They feel motivated. They take action. But when results don't appear immediately, they stop. And the moment they stop, they unknowingly quit right before the breakthrough. Let me ask you something very important. Have you ever worked extremely hard on something, stayed committed for weeks or months, and still felt like you were getting nowhere? If that's ever happened to you, I want you to comment below and tell me, I'm still going. Because the truth is this, the people who eventually win are not the ones who see results first. They are the ones who refuse to quit when results are invisible. One of the most powerful lessons I've learned in life is this: results are delayed, but progress is happening. Just because you can't see growth yet does not mean growth isn't taking place. Think about planting a seed. When you plant a seed in the ground, you water it, you nurture it, you take care of it. But for a long time, nothing appears on the surface. Days pass, weeks pass. And if you didn't understand how nature works, you might assume the seed failed. But underneath the soil, something extraordinary is happening. Roots are forming. Strength is building. The foundation is developing. And then one day, the plant breaks through the surface. Success works exactly the same way. In business, in personal development, in building wealth, in improving your mindset, and even in building a successful YouTube channel, there is always a period where effort comes before evidence. And this is where most people lose. They confuse lack of visible results with lack of progress. Let me be clear about something. Every successful person you admire went through a long period where their effort looked pointless to the outside world. But they kept going. They kept showing up. They stayed consistent even when nobody was watching. One of the greatest principles of achievement is what I call the law of accumulation. This law says that every action counts. Every effort matters. Every hour you invest in improving yourself, building your skill, learning something new, or working toward your goal adds up. Nothing is wasted. Even when results seem invisible, progress is accumulating beneath the surface. Most people dramatically underestimate what consistent action can do over time. They think success happens in sudden bursts, but in reality, success is built through daily habits repeated again and again. Let me give you an example. If you improve just 1% every day, just one small step forward, that improvement compounds in ways that are almost impossible to imagine. Your skills grow, your confidence grows, your discipline grows. And slowly, without even noticing it at first, you become the type of person who produces results. But here's the challenge. Consistency is difficult when there is no applause. Consistency is difficult when there is no feedback. Consistency is difficult when nobody is congratulating you. And yet, that exact period is where champions are created. In my early years, I struggled more than most people realize. I worked low-paying jobs. I felt uncertain about my future. There were moments when I questioned whether my efforts were leading anywhere at all. But I discovered something powerful. The people who eventually succeed are not necessarily the most talented. They are the most persistent. Persistence is consistency with emotional commitment. It means you keep going not because it's easy, but because you believe the effort will eventually produce results. And it always does. If you stay consistent long enough, three things begin to happen. First, you gain mastery. When you repeat a skill every day, your brain rewires itself. You become faster, sharper, and more capable. Tasks that once felt difficult become natural. Second, you build confidence. Confidence does not come from motivation speeches or temporary inspiration. It comes from keeping promises to yourself. Every time you show up when you said you would, your self-respect grows. And third, you create momentum. Momentum is one of the most powerful forces in success. At the beginning, pushing forward feels like moving a heavy boulder. Every step requires effort. But once the boulder begins rolling, movement becomes easier. Progress accelerates. And suddenly the same actions that once felt difficult Start producing visible results. This is why consistency is so powerful. It bridges the gap between effort and reward. But let me warn you about something very important. The moment when most people quit is not the beginning, it's the middle. The beginning is exciting. You have motivation. You have vision. You feel energized. But the middle is quiet. The middle is where progress feels slow. The middle is where doubt begins to whisper in your mind. You start asking questions like, is this even working? Should I change direction? Maybe I'm wasting my time. Those thoughts are normal. Every person pursuing a meaningful goal experiences them. The difference is not who has doubt. The difference is who continues anyway. I have met thousands of successful entrepreneurs, leaders, and high achievers. And one pattern appears again and again. They all went through long stretches where results were invisible, but they stayed consistent anyway. Consistency is not glamorous. It's not exciting most of the time. It's simply the discipline of doing what needs to be done, whether you feel like it or not. And this brings me to a question I want you to think about carefully. Are you measuring your success by your effort or by immediate results? Because if you judge your progress only by visible results, you may quit far too early. But if you measure success by consistency, you stay in the game long enough for results to arrive. And results always arrive for those who stay consistent long enough. Let me tell you something that changed my life. Your job is not to control results. Your job is to control actions. You cannot always control when success appears, but you can control whether you show up today. You can control whether you improve today. You can control whether you take one more step forward. And when you do that day after day, week after week, month after month, the results that once seemed impossible begin to appear. Slowly at first, then suddenly. And when that moment happens, people will look at you and say something interesting. They will say, you got lucky, but you and I will know the truth. Luck had nothing to do with it. It was consistency. And that consistency, especially when results were invisible, is what made all the difference. Let me share something with you that most people never realize until they look back years later. The biggest rewards in life almost always come after the point where most people give up. This is why consistency is so rare and why it's so valuable. You see, the majority of people are not lacking intelligence. They are not lacking opportunity. And most of them are not even lacking talent. What they lack is endurance. They start with enthusiasm, but they stop when progress feels slow. And slow progress is one of the greatest psychological tests you will ever face. Because when results are invisible, your mind begins to play tricks on you. You start comparing yourself to others. You start questioning your path. Start wondering if someone else is moving faster than you. But comparison is one of the most dangerous habits you can develop, because you are comparing your behind-the-scenes effort with someone else's highlight reel. You don't see their years of failure. You don't see the nights they stayed up learning. You don't see the months when nothing worked. All you see is the moment when success finally becomes visible. But success always has a long, invisible preparation period. Let me tell you a simple truth that has helped millions of people change their lives. Progress is not always obvious while it is happening. Think about learning any skill, learning to speak confidently, learning to run a business, learning to create valuable content, learning to manage money. At the beginning, everything feels awkward. You make mistakes. You move slowly. You question your ability. But every repetition strengthens your competence. Your brain literally builds new neural pathways through repetition. The more you practice something, the easier and more natural it becomes. This is not just motivation. This is neuroscience. Your brain adapts to what you repeatedly do. If you repeatedly practice discipline, discipline becomes part of your identity. If you repeatedly practice focus, focus becomes natural. And if you repeatedly show up even when results are invisible, resilience becomes your greatest strength. Let me ask you something. How many times have you started something with excitement only to abandon it a few weeks later? A new habit, a new goal, a new project. You told yourself this time would be different. But eventually, discouragement crept in. That pattern is extremely common, but it is also completely reversible. The moment you make a commitment to consistency, real consistency, everything changes. You stop asking, is this working yet? Instead, you ask, did I do my best today? You stop focusing on the scoreboard. Instead, you focus on the process. And when you fall in love with the process, something remarkable happens. You become unstoppable. Because now your progress is no longer dependent on motivation. Motivation comes and goes. Some days you feel energized. Some days you feel tired. Some days you feel inspired. Some days you feel uncertain. But consistency does not depend on feelings. Consistency depends on decisions. You make the decision to act. You make the decision to improve. You make the decision to continue. Every great achievement in human history has been built on this principle. Athletes train for years before winning championships. Entrepreneurs build businesses through countless setbacks before success appears. Writers produce thousands of words before creating a masterpiece. And creators who succeed on platforms like YouTube, podcasts, or digital businesses often produce content for months, sometimes years, before they see explosive growth. But when growth finally comes, it looks sudden to everyone else. People say things like they blew up overnight. But you and I know the truth. There is no such thing as overnight success. There is only consistent effort meeting delayed results. I once learned a principle that completely changed the way I view progress. It's called the plateau of latent potential. Imagine a block of ice sitting in a cold room. The temperature is 25 degrees. Nothing happens. You increase the temperature to 26 degrees. Still nothing. 27 degrees, nothing. 28 degrees, nothing. 29 degrees, nothing. At 30 degrees, the ice still hasn't melted. At 31 degrees, it's still solid. Then at 32 degrees, suddenly the ice begins to melt. Now most people look at that moment and think the change happened at 32 degrees. But the truth is, every degree mattered. All of those efforts were building toward the moment where change finally became visible. Success works exactly the same way. Every action you take moves you 1 degree closer. Every day you stay consistent raises the temperature. Every skill you build strengthens your foundation. And eventually you reach your breakthrough point. But the people who quit early never reach that moment. They stop at 28 degrees, or 29, or 31. They were incredibly close, but they gave up because they couldn't see the progress yet. This is why patience is not just helpful. Patience is essential. But patience does not mean waiting passively. Patience means working consistently while results are still invisible. Let me give you a practical strategy that I have used for decades. Focus on daily standards instead of distant outcomes. Instead of saying, I want to be successful, ask yourself, what actions must I take every day to move closer to that success? Then commit to those actions no matter what. Write every day. Learn every day. Practice every day. Improve every day. Even if the improvement is small. Because small improvements compound into massive transformation over time. 1% better each day might not look impressive today, but over a year, it becomes extraordinary. And over several years, it becomes life-changing. This is why consistency is the ultimate advantage. Talent can be inconsistent. Motivation can be inconsistent. But discipline creates reliability. And reliability builds trust in yourself. When you trust yourself to show up every day, you gain a sense of control over your life that most people never experience. You stop depending on external validation. You stop waiting for permission. You simply continue the work. And that quiet persistence becomes your greatest asset. I want you to think about something for a moment. Imagine where you could be 3 years from now if you stayed consistent with one meaningful goal. Not perfect, just consistent. Learning, practicing, improving, adapting. 3 years of consistent effort can transform your identity, your skills, your opportunities, and your confidence. But most people never experience that transformation. Not because it's impossible, but because they stop too soon. And that brings us to one of the most important questions you can ask yourself. Are you willing to continue even when the rewards are not immediate? Because if you are willing to do that, you have already separated yourself from the majority of people. Consistency is rare, but those who master it gain one of the most powerful advantages in life. And in the next part, I want to show you exactly how to build unbreakable consistency, how to stay disciplined when motivation disappears, and how to keep moving forward even during the toughest phases of your journey. Now let's talk about something extremely important. Knowing that consistency matters is one thing, But building unbreakable consistency in your daily life is another. Because the truth is, staying consistent is not easy. If it were easy, everyone would do it, and extraordinary success would be ordinary. But it isn't. Most people live in cycles. They feel inspired for a few days, they work hard for a short time, and then their energy fades. They stop, they reset, and eventually they start again. This cycle of starting and stopping is one of the biggest obstacles to success. Why? Because progress loves momentum. Every time you stop, you reset that momentum. You force yourself to start from zero again. But when you stay consistent, even at a slow pace, your momentum keeps growing. So the real question becomes this: how do you stay consistent when motivation disappears? Because motivation will disappear. There will be mornings when you feel tired. There will be days when you feel discouraged. There will be moments when you question everything you are doing. And this is exactly where discipline takes over. One of the greatest discoveries I ever made was this: successful people don't rely on motivation. They rely on systems. A system is simply a structure that makes consistent action easier. For example, instead of saying, I will work on my goal whenever I feel inspired, create a rule. I work on my goal every day at this time. Now the decision has already been made. You are no longer negotiating with yourself. You simply follow the system. This small change removes one of the biggest enemies of consistency, decision fatigue. When you constantly ask yourself whether you should act, your brain looks for comfort. But when the action is scheduled and automatic, resistance becomes weaker. Let me give you a very powerful principle. Make success easier to start. One of the biggest mistakes people make is setting goals that feel overwhelming. They say, I will work 3 hours every day. But when the time arrives, the task feels too big. So they postpone it. Instead, reduce the starting point. Commit to 5 minutes. Commit to 1 page. Commit to one small action. Because once you start, momentum takes over. Starting is the hardest part. Once you're moving, continuing becomes easier. This is why consistent people focus on showing up, not being perfect. Perfection is the enemy of consistency. If you expect perfection, you will hesitate. You will overthink. You will delay. But if your goal is simply to show up and improve a little each day, you remove the pressure that stops progress. Let me tell you something that may surprise you. The most successful people I know are not obsessed with giant leaps forward. They are obsessed with daily progress. Just one step forward every single day, because they understand the mathematics of improvement. If you take one small step every day for a year, you don't just move forward 365 steps. Those steps compound. They transform your skills. They transform your thinking. They transform your identity. And identity is the most powerful force behind consistency. When you see yourself as someone who never quits, your behavior changes. You begin acting in alignment with that identity. You stop asking, should I continue? Instead, you say, this is who I am. I am someone who keeps going. I am someone who finishes what I start. I am someone who stays consistent even when results are invisible. And once that identity takes hold, something remarkable happens. Consistency stops feeling like discipline. It becomes part of your character. Now let me share another powerful idea that has helped thousands of people stay committed to their goals. Track your consistency. Human beings are naturally motivated by progress. When you can see your effort building day after day, it creates psychological momentum. It reminds you that you are moving forward even when results haven't appeared yet. So mark every day you show up. Build a streak. Protect that streak. Because once you've been consistent for 10 days, you won't want to break it. Once you reach 30 days, your confidence grows. Once you reach 90 days, the habit becomes deeply ingrained. And suddenly the behavior that once felt difficult becomes automatic. This is how extraordinary success is built. Not through bursts of intensity, but through long periods of steady, focused effort. Let me also tell you something encouraging. Consistency does not mean you will never struggle. It does not mean every day will be perfect. Some days will be messy. Some days will feel slow. Some days you will do less than you planned. That's normal. What matters is that you return the next day. Consistency is not perfection. Consistency is commitment over time. The person who continues after a bad day will always outperform the person who quit after one. And when you maintain that mindset, you become incredibly resilient. you stop fearing setbacks. You stop fearing slow progress because you understand something powerful. As long as you continue, the story isn't finished. Your future success might be one breakthrough away, one new idea, one new connection, one new opportunity. And those breakthroughs almost always appear for people who stay in the game long enough. That's why consistency is not just a habit. It is a strategy for winning. The longer you remain committed, the more opportunities you create, the more skills you develop, the more doors begin to open. And eventually, all the invisible effort begins to produce visible results. People begin noticing your progress. Your confidence increases. Your results multiply. And suddenly, the effort that once felt unnoticed becomes undeniable. But remember this, that moment did not happen overnight. It was built quietly through hundreds of days where you showed up even when results were invisible. So here is my challenge for you. Make a decision today. Choose one meaningful goal, not 10 goals, not 20, just one. Then commit to consistent action toward that goal every single day. Not until you feel motivated, not until things get easier, but until the result appears. Because if you stay consistent long enough, results are not a possibility. They are inevitable. And one day, you will look back at the moments when you felt like quitting and you will realize something incredible. Those were the moments that shaped your success. Those were the moments when your discipline grew stronger than your doubt. Those were the moments when you became the person capable of achieving your goals. So keep going. Stay focused. Stay disciplined. And most importantly, stay consistent, even if you don't see results yet. Because the breakthrough you're waiting for may be much closer than you think.